Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all so much for joining us this Friday afternoon, and we are pleased to have you with us. Again, this is a NATaT hosted webinar to talk about the FEMA's Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program. Real quickly, I want to introduce myself and my colleague. My name is Jennifer Emo, and I'm the Federal Director for the National Association of Towns and Townships. And I'm here with my colleague Heidi Schott, who is also a member of the NATaT staff. We manage NATaT as part of a separate contract, and we work directly for the Ferguson Group, which represents local governments around the country. As a result, we're very familiar with the Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program because local governments around the country are very interested in this popular program. So all of you are in mute mode right now, so as to avoid a lot of background noise for the webinar. If you would please, at any time, you can write in a question if you have one, and we'll hope to get to all of your questions during the hour that we have allotted for this webinar. We'll let you know that we will be cut off after 1 hour, so we want to go ahead and get started. We do want to get to as many questions as we can, but also want you to know that a recording of this webinar will be available to you. We'll either email it out or put it up on our website. Currently, it looks like there's some issues with our website, but we've got our technical folks working on that now. So we'll go ahead and get started. Again, welcome. We are here today to talk about the Assistance to Firefighters Grant Program. We wanted to give you an overview of the program, talk a little bit about the application process, who are the eligible applicants, what the matching requirements are, meaning how much local skin needs to be in the game, award limits, eligible items and activities, what to put in the narrative of the application, general assistance to firefighter grant tips, and then we also are providing a number of additional website resources for you. So generally with the Assistance to Firefighter Grant Program, the total funding amount for this fiscal year is $306 million. And the applications are due to FEMA on January 15th, 2016. A little bit more about the application process. Wanted to let you know that the Notice of Funding Opportunity was made available November 30th, 2015, and the application portal opened to accept applications December 7th, 2015. And again, as I mentioned before, the application portal closes. All applications must be in by January 15th, 2016, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. There's kind of a multi-process when reviewing these applications, and the first is an electronic pre-score. And really what that does is it focuses on the data portion of the application. There are certain elements that you must have in the data portion in order to move on to the more to the peer review. So basically, the data portion of the application has values assigned to them based on really alignment with the program's priorities. So only the applications that meet the electronic pre-scoring minimum will move forward to the peer and panel review process. Excuse me. Next, it does go to that peer review, which there are approximately 200 to 225 peer reviewers that participate and are nominated every year. And then again, we've got post-panel review and then awards. And typically awards start coming out late spring, early summer, and they really come out on a rolling basis over a couple of months. So if you don't hear anything in that first tranche of award announcements, never fear. They usually are coming out, I would say, Heidi, is it once a week, usually on Fridays?
Every Friday.
Every Friday.
Until the end of September.
until the end of September. So it is. It's a pretty long period of time, which you're waiting to hear about any type of rewards or awards. So who can apply? Eligible applicants include fire departments, non-affiliated EMS, and State Fire Training Academy. I think the definition of a fire department is pretty clear, but wanted to be more clear on what the non-affiliated EMS organization is. And what that is, it's a public or private nonprofit emergency medical service entity that provides medical transport that is not affiliated with a hospital and does not serve a geographic area where emergency medical services are adequately provided by the fire department. And so again, eligible applicants, fire departments, non-affiliated EMS, and state fire and training academies. Okay, like I mentioned before, you have to have some skin in the game. The federal government isn't going to pay for 100% of your project costs, but depending on your size, they've aligned a local matching requirement. So if your population is under 20,000, your match requirement is 5%. And what that is 5% of the total project cost. So not 5% of your request, but 5% of the total project cost. For those with a population of 20,000 to 1 million, the matching requirement is 10% of the total project cost. And for those with a population of over 1 million, your matching requirement is 15%. Okay, so another thing to think about are award limits, but I'm frankly less concerned about this, so I'm not going to spend much time on it. But just to be aware, there are award limits. So for population served by, for jurisdictions, fire jurisdictions or EMS jurisdictions that serve less than 100,000 people, your maximum award is $1 million. And then you can see it goes all the way up to $3.4 million. Okay, so what can you use AFG funds for? AFG has 3 activities: the operations and safety, vehicle acquisition, and regional projects. Now, each of these activities actually has its own application and its own eligibility requirements, which are detailed in the Notice of Funding Opportunity. Now, operations and safety, I'm going to go through the some of these areas: equipment, personal protective equipment, wellness and fitness, modification to facilities, and training. But again, know that there are 3 main activities: operations and safety, vehicle acquisition, and regional projects. Okay, so the first, a popular area for funding is equipment. Of course, AFG does have priorities, and priority in this area is actually given to first-time purchase of such equipment, as well as replacement of obsolete, broken, or inoperable equipment. So with obsolete, priority is given to equipment that's 10 years or older. The priority list for equipment is run-of-the-mill firefighting equipment. That includes such things as appliances and nozzles, air compressors, basic hand tools, everything from a hose to a ladder to personal accountability systems. It really does kind of run the gamut of various firefighting equipment. The second priority equipment list is communications. That can include mobile radios, pagers, mobile data terminals, but do know that any mobile and portable radios must be P25 compliant. The next is EMS rescue. That could be a CPR device, airway equipment, AEDs, blood pressure cuff, etc. And then also extraction, which are really extraction tools like cutters, spreaders, and vehicle extraction equipment. So note that all equipment has to comply with the NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Association, as well as OSHA standards. Okay, so next under operations and safety is personal protective equipment. High priorities for the personal protective equipment. If you are requesting PPE for the first time, if you are replacing torn, damaged, or obsolete personal protective equipment, and again, the obsolete for regular equipment is 10 years of age or older, and for the SCBAs, which is the self-contained breathing apparatus, it's 2 NFPA cycles. Also, for a high priority under this section is to equip members who currently do not have gear. Equipment that are part of this high priority list, again, I mentioned the self-contained breathing apparatus, also rescue bailout systems, EMS turnout gear, and forestry turnout gear. Okay. The next thing under operations and safety is wellness and fitness. And this essentially is focusing on the physical and emotional well-being of the emergency responders. So in order to be eligible for funding, applicants must offer or plan to offer all 4 of these priority 1 high activities. So that includes initial medical exams, job-related immunization, annual medical and fitness evaluation, and behavioral health. If an applicant is looking to apply for something under the priority 2 items, they can do so only if, again, they offer all 4 of the priority 1 high priorities. They could also actually, if there are plans to offer one of those priority 1 high priorities, it can be in tandem with those priority 2 priorities, high priorities. Sorry, that's a lot of priority. But you know, just know that it does need to, you do need to ensure that you are offering all 4 of the first high priorities. Okay, the next area is the modification to facilities. You can't use assistance to firefighter grant funds to build a new fire station. These funds can only be used to retrofit existing structures built prior to 2003. You can't change the footprint of your fire station. Again, it's just retrofitting the existing structure. So high priority modifications are those where departments are requesting direct source capture exhaust systems, sprinkler systems, or smoke and fire detectors. And again, that's not putting sprinkler systems or smoke or fire detectors or these exhaust systems anywhere but in the station. I know a lot of departments are interested in public buildings having those fire sprinklers and smoke and fire detectors. Obviously, you know, a lot of that is under law; they have to be. But residential sprinkler systems and smoke fire detectors are not. But again, this is just for the actual fire station. Okay. The next area under operations and safety is training. Really, FEMA has determined that hands-on instructor-led training that meets a national, state, or Homeland Security adopted standard and results in a national or state certification provides the greatest training benefits. So there are high priorities under this activity. The training offered should benefit the highest percentage of personnel. And note that training applications can also include requests to fund training instruction costs, training equipment costs, and costs to pay or backfill members that are attending training. So I'm going to stop there for 1 second and check and make sure, because I'm going to punt this over to Heidi. I'm going to check and make sure, see if we have any questions. We do, and I can't see it. Do ladder trucks and engines, pumper tankers? We are getting there.
Yeah, we're just about to answer that question, actually.
Okay. Let's see. All right. So if there aren't any more questions at this time, I'm going to punt it over to Heidi to talk about vehicles.
So under AFG, as Jennifer originally stated, vehicle acquisitions is eligible request under the program. And so the goal under AFG for vehicle acquisition is to replace unsafe or converted vehicles, as well as replacing vehicles that were purchased prior to 1992 edition of NFPA Standard 1901. So as you can see by the chart, we have listed all the high priority vehicles that you can request under this component. They're based on your size of community, and I'm guessing that most of you will fit under the rural communities. Something really important to note under vehicle acquisition is that you must have training for your drivers in place before you request the vehicle or you get your award, or you must already have drivers trained. If you don't have that aspect, AFG will revoke your award. So just a quick note about that.
We'll see. We'll get to the next slide in just a second. Sorry. There we go.
So we also mentioned earlier that you could submit a regional application. For regional applications, the goal is to improve interoperability and efficiencies between multiple fire departments or non-affiliated EMS organizations in an area. You'll need to have one host fire department or non-affiliated EMS lead your application, as well as having all benefiting fire departments submit the required data and MOUs in your application. If you don't have all the required data from every single fire department that benefits from this section, AFG will disqualify your application. So under your regional application, you can request training equipment and personal protective equipment, as well as vehicles. And those are all things we've already touched upon. So now we're going to briefly talk about the 5 narrative elements that you must address in the AFG application, and I'm going to go briefly through each of them. So the community and agency description section of your application is your chance to introduce your department to the peer panel reviewers. When you're crafting this section, you want to assume that your reviewer does not know anything about where you're located or anything about, and assume that they do not know any fire department lingo. So when you're explaining your community, state where it's located, how many people reside there, what your land use is like, and anything that's unique about it, like protecting pipelines or major highways or hydroelectric dams. Also, you want to give facts about your department, like what your mission is, how many stations and vehicles you have, the number of staff you have, and if you have any unique calls to your department, like you're part of a hazmat team or something like that. So the next narrative component is the project description and budget. This section should clearly explain the project objectives and the relationship to the department's budgets and needs. So you should explicitly state what you're requesting and why. So if you're requesting 30 obsolete SCBAs, breathing apparatus, then you should say what your current SCBAs, why your current SCBAs are deficient to prove why they need to be replaced. You should also associate a cost with each item that you're going to request and explain how you determine that cost. Finally, if there are any unique features that in the equipment that you're requesting, you should tout those unique features because it goes to show that it'll improve the departmental mission and align with high AFG priorities. So just a quick tip, when you're describing the equipment that you're going to request, make sure not to use brand names because AFG does not appreciate that. They want to think that the playing ground is fair and you have not chosen vendors or brands beforehand. So for the financial needs section is your opportunity to explain why you need federal assistance and demonstrate financial distress. In this section, you want to show what current funding issues you have. For example, if your department has had a declining or flatline budget for several years, you should explain that. It's also helpful to give a breakdown of your department's budget in detail. So include personnel costs, maintenance costs, fuel costs, equipment costs, etc. Additionally, if you're requesting to replace obsolete or outdated equipment, it's helpful to explain to your peer reviewers how much you're spending to maintain these obsolete and deficient pieces of equipment. This goes to show that it's going to be more cost effective in the long run to purchase new equipment than to continue maintaining the other equipment. So the fourth narrative section is a cost-benefit analysis, and it's meant to demonstrate that the benefits outweigh the cost incurred in the project. The benefits should be tied to your department's mission. For example, the benefits to firefighters and public safety, decreasing property loss, frequency of use, decreasing overhead or admin costs, and improving mutual aid or interoperability. All the costs associated with the project should be broken down on a per capita basis. Your goal is to prove that there are more benefits out of your request than costs. So the final narratives section is a statement of effect. This section is all about how the reward would impact your department's daily operations. And you also want to talk about how it will impact your department's ability to protect lives, property, and the community. This section should really focus on how it enhances the department's overall effectiveness. So we've been through a lot today, and we wanted to leave you with a few general tips. So I would say this is one of the most important tips. If in order to submit an application, you have to have a DUNS number as well as be registered in the Systems for Award Management. If you guys do not have your DUNS and SAM registration already in order, I would strongly recommend that you do that today because there is a waiting period for confirmation. If you already do have your DUNS and your SAM registration, double check to make sure your SAM registration is active. SAM registrations expire every year and you have to update the info, so that's why I wanted to alert you to that. So make sure you have those two key components in first, or else all this effort in putting together an application is for naught. Another tip that we have is if your department hasn't already done so, have it conduct a risk assessment to determine your department's needs. This will help you build your case and your narrative. Furthermore, make sure that your department's needs that you identify are matched with the high priorities that we've gone over today with you in the AFG program. Another thing to keep in mind when you're writing your narrative is to share as much local information and data as possible. A lot of applicants tend to provide national statistics, and while that is all right, it does not resonate as strongly with the reviewers for your local need. Another tip we have is that we've already stated is provide information that is unique to your community. Once again, do not assume that your reviewer knows where your department is located, knows anything unique about your department. So share as much as you can about your department. And last but not least, and you've heard this before, do not use brand names. AFG really wants to make sure that you have not pre-selected your equipment request because they want you to select the best and lowest price available. A side note on that, talking with AFG specialists, they have said it's not uncommon for applicants to have a vendor or brand name in mind, but just keep that information out of your narrative. So we've been through a lot of information today so far, and we wanted to leave you guys with some resources that FEMA has published. Do not hesitate to reach out to your regional fire program specialists. They will actually review sections of your narrative with you prior to submitting. Also, if you can't get a hold of your program specialist, do not hesitate to call their main helpline or email their help desk. And finally, last but not least, FEMA has put together a great AFG website that you should check out. There are awesome Get Ready guides on there that will help you craft your narrative and review your submission before you apply.
Okay, so I am looking, we have got some questions. I also want to provide you with our contact information, and for some reason I'm having some technical difficulties being able to see these questions. So if you'll bear with us for just a minute, we will try to get to them.
Can we scroll that down?
That's the problem, I can't get that thing to move. Hang on.
Delete. You can delete
bear with us for just a minute.
What are some elements of a risk assessment for a fire department?
Okay, so the question is, what are some elements of a risk assessment for a department? To be honest with you, I think that's a difficult question. I think that
your chiefs would probably know the answer.
Well, with a lot of these, we've got that's something I think we would need to look up and get back to you, because we don't know the answer.
And it's not actually written in the notice of funding availability,
right.
What a risk assessment is. Basically what I was trying to say when I brought that up was you need to prioritize what your department needs are to align with what the AFG program has spelled out as their highest priorities.
Right. Okay. So the next thing is what types of projects are going to be given the highest priority in scoring. And, we did mention, honestly, it is within each activity, there are the higher priorities. So, for example, under operations and safety, under equipment, if this is your first time purchase of certain equipment that is necessary, that's a high priority. Obviously, replacing obsolete or broken and inoperable equipment is a high priority. If there is like personal protective equipment that members of your fire department do not have, that is a high priority.
And also if you guys are interested in actually seeing what the highly ranked priorities are, I suggest that you go and to the AFG website and you download the notice of funding opportunity, because they rank their priorities with a bright H for high, blue for medium, and an L for low. And you want to avoid requesting anything that falls into categories that are ranked medium and low. So.
Okay, as it relates to SCBA's, what are the two NFPA cycles? And that is a good question. We would need to look that up on is that on NFPA's website?
Yeah,
we don't have that information.
On AFG's website.
So we can look that up for you. Okay, is there an online template we can use to prepare our application? You know, it is definitely a form. It's a very data-driven process, and it is a form on. Actually, this one's not from grants.gov, right? It's straight from the FEMA website. So it is really filling out a form, and you can save the form. You get a login and password, and continue to work on the application. But again, it is it's hard to say there's a template, because it's a form, an online form
that you have to fill out.
Yeah. So the question: can a volunteer fire and EMS working out of the same building, which are funded by a town or village, apply for this grant? And I believe the answer is yes. Obviously, volunteer fire and EMS are eligible for these. It doesn't matter that you're working out of the same building. So the answer there is yes. Okay. And I think that's the end of the questions for now. Does anybody else have a question? You can either raise your hand and alert us that you have a question, or type one in. I think, oh, here we go. What we can do too is we will fill in the answers to these questions, and that will be made available with the webinar. Very good question. Is this a yearly grant that fire and EMS can apply for? And that was going to be kind of the last thing that I wanted to address. This is an annual grant program. FEMA actually has 3 very popular grants for career and volunteer fire departments, and combination departments as well. The Assistance to Firefighter Grant Program, the Fire Prevention and Safety Grant Program, and the SAFER Grant Program, which is a hiring recruitment or retention grant, and all 3 of which are very popular with both types of departments, career and volunteer. I will tell you too, if this all seems like a lot of information that would need to be put together before January 15th, you know, we do understand that, but know that this does come around annually. You could even start getting ready for the next round, which again will be released at the end of December of 2016. And then the Fire Prevention and Safety and SAFER grant opportunities will be released, gosh, I believe sometime in the spring, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right?
Yes.
The applications?
Yes.
The notice of funding opportunities for those will be released. So the PowerPoint is going to be made available, as is a recording to this webinar. We will email that out to your board of directors and make sure everybody gets it. For some reason, we have a glitch on our website, and I'm not sure exactly what that's related to again. So I don't want to promise that we'll have it up on our website right now when I'm not sure what's going on with our website. So we will make sure that all of you have the PowerPoint and access to a recording to this webinar. Let's see, we do have another question. We have a city fire department, but most of the firefighters are township residents, and the city has contracts with 6 townships to provide fire protection. Should the city apply or the townships?
In this situation, it's actually the fire departments that
Yeah.
have to apply. The city and the towns are not eligible applicants. So applications submitted online are going to come from your non-affiliated EMS organizations or your fire departments.
Okay. So we actually got through this faster than I had anticipated. I'm going to hold out for just a couple more minutes to see if anybody else has any questions. But again, mine and Heidi's contact information is provided. Please feel free to contact us with any particular questions that you may have outside of the ones that you have indicated here. And since we do not have any more questions, we are going to go ahead and end. Oh, I'm sorry. So the town does apply for the fire.
No.
The applicant is the fire department or the non-affiliated EMS. So it is not the town. It would be the fire department that would have to apply. So thank you all very much for your time today. Again, let us know if you have any questions, and we'll make sure that these materials are made available to you. Happy holidays, everyone, and we look forward to working with you. Thanks so much. Bye.